Welcome! This video contains an introduction, an interview so you can gain deeper understanding of the subject from spirit level, and a group frequency calibration so you can start to clear the frequency distortion patterns around this topic. Enjoy! Hi everyone, this is Karen Cheong, and I'm here with my co-host Dennis Kelly. The default assumption is that in order to be productive, we have to be constantly pushing forward. We need to be checking things off our list and continually in motion. However, when we deliberately set periods of stillness, a gestation period is created. And when we come out of this gestation period, we can actually be more productive, and what we create is of a higher resonance and therefore has a greater impact. So today we're going to be discussing what this gestation period is, how to cultivate it, and how to incorporate it easily into your life. After the discussion, we're going to wrap it up with a group frequency calibration to begin to help you clear the distortion patterns around this topic. So let's get started. Dennis?
You know, I'm really excited about this topic, and you mentioned gestation, and to me, I think of kind of the magic and the mystical part of all that, and then you threw in stillness.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a challenge with stillness.
Oh, I hear you, and it's true. Most people do, because we're so conditioned to be moving all the time, and we're so mentally active all the time, especially with our digital devices. It's difficult to put them down. We're very addicted to them. We like to be watching imagery all the time. We like to be having an emotional experience all the time with them. So we do not like being still. In fact, it's very difficult for people to become still. So I'm just going to redefine still, okay? I mean mental stillness. So I don't mean physical immobility and mental immobility, I mean mental stillness. So meaning, for some people, they can achieve a mental stillness through motion. So if you're a swimmer, you very much know what I'm talking about. It's meditative, right? Because you're moving and you're hearing your breath, but you're not thinking that much because you're breathing and you're swimming. Or you could be running or dancing, so it doesn't really matter the activity. You could be riding your motorcycle, you could be rock climbing, you could be, do you see what I'm saying? So there's physical motion.
What I was thinking about when you said that, Karen, is the fact that, you know, they talk about professional athletes that get in the zone. In the zone. So they're at peak performance, but their mind is just extremely at peace.
Yeah, well, because they're really in the present moment. And so there is no time. So I've heard also stories where they talk about time getting slow. Well, that's because you're in the eternal now, where there is no time. So time gets very liquid and very elongated. It can. You can also speed it up if you wanted to, but in those moments, they can also get very long. So yes, what I mean, to your point, is I mean mental stillness. So a point where your mind isn't chattering as much. And so for me, personally, when I talk about these periods of stillness, where it's a gestation period, I mean specifically where I could be in a doing mode, so doing an activity, like bicycling, where I don't have a plan. So I'm just going to get on my bike, I'm going to ride down the hill and bike along the ocean, because I happen to live in Hawaii, which is amazing. And I don't have a plan of how long I'm going to bike for, where I'm going to bike to exactly, where I'm going to turn around. I'm just biking, and I'm enjoying the sun and the smells of the flowers and the sound of the ocean and all that stuff, but there's no plan. Does that make sense? So I'm not thinking about anything. And when I'm biking, I'm deliberately emptying my mind. So I don't have an agenda. What I'm using instead in that moment is my senses. So I become very consumed with the color of the sky, right? Or the temperature of the air, or the smell of the flowers. And because I'm very present with my senses, my mind is much, much more quiet. And in that quiet, what happens is a reset. This gestation period that happens. So oftentimes what happens is I finish my bike ride, like put the bike away on the rack, all of a sudden all these ideas will start to come in of, okay, actually this is the theme for the next email, this is the next theme for the next episode, here's the next GFC I need to do, whatever it is. Like it just comes flooding in because I've given myself space to just be in nothingness, if that makes sense. So I'm not thinking about anything.
The fact of the matter is you've turned over any sense of control.
Yes.
It's like I'm not in control trying to think of what I'm going to be producing for the next week.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let it be whatever it is. And
whatever
comes in, it comes in.
Yeah.
So is that kind of allowing that spirit to connect?
Yes, and I personally feel that my spirit's connected all the time. I think everyone's is. It's about being aware of that connection. So it's like you're not really, you're not always aware of your right ear. It's there, but you're not aware of it. And all of a sudden you put your attention on it and there it is, right? So it's just becoming aware of your connection to pure source. And what you're doing by being very present is expanding your awareness of your connection to pure source, which is really lovely. Now I may do something at the beginning, like, you know, I would love to have some inspiration for, I don't know, whatever it is, this next marketing piece. And then I'll let it go. Yeah. But I truly let it go. So if it comes in that bike ride, great. And if it comes in 3 bike rides, wonderful. And I don't really care if it comes in or not. But sometimes it'll just like come in and I'm not even really expecting it. But it requires my mind to be totally like, I think of it almost like a well. It's you have to drop everything out of the well because the well's full of all these other thoughts, right? So you're like draining the well. So now the well is empty, and now something new can flow into it, which is not just the mind chatter, something new can come in. So I found that that's a really wonderful thing to do. I found that you can do a creative thing, like painting. For me, it's painting. I love to paint. So when I'm painting, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just putting the colors on and I'm swirling them around and I'm mushing around the textures and I'm just painting. I'm enjoying it. I'm not thinking about anything. And at the end of that period, I'll come out of it and I'll be like, oh, wait, here's actually the next whatever it is that I need to do, you know? This is going to be the book, the course, the whatever, the meditation, whatever it is, and it all comes out. So it could be also cooking, for example. There are a lot of people who cook, who are in the flow of that creativity, and they're not really thinking. They're just because what they're doing is they've expanded their senses. They're there just chopping the onions, right? And so you're there with the onions chopping, whatever.
So you make this sound fairly simple, Karen. Yeah. But for a lot of folks, this is quite challenging. So the question I've got for you is the how. How can I allow my mind to experience stillness?
Sure. So I think the important thing first is to schedule a time where you allow for this to happen. Okay? Because most people don't. So they just think, oh, I'd really like to do that. And then they never schedule a time to do it because they have so many things they need to do. Right? It's very important. So
we're doers.
We're doers. So we have this to-do list. We've got to get it all done. We like check it off and then we're complete. And the next day we have more to do. To me, the setting aside time, so for me, the way I work is that if it doesn't go into my calendar or doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't usually get done because I can put any other number of things in front of it. So putting as much priority on stillness or this gestation period, let's call it that, is as important to me as doing something, because when I come out of the gestation period, what I receive in terms of ideas, I could think about that actively for weeks and it wouldn't be that, I wouldn't get it. I would just be smashing my head against the wall. And at the end, what I would come up with wouldn't be that great. But after the gestation period, it just comes in because I'm not really thinking, I'm receiving, right? In the well, you're just receiving. So to answer your question about how, I'm getting there, I promise you. Okay, so with that well, you're just receptive, open, and wait, and like just receptive and open. And so that's when the ideas can flood in. So 1, schedule the time. Schedule the time for there to be nothingness. If stillness scares the bejesus out of you, which it does for some people, move. So take an activity that you like, right? And just enjoy it. Do you like riding a motorcycle? Do you woodwork? Do you, I don't know what you do. Do something. Swim, swim, go for a walk, take your dogs out. I don't know, whatever it is. It really doesn't matter. Pick an activity. Do it. And then when you're doing that, instead of thinking, oh my God, my mind's chattering, I'm thinking about blah, 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 use your senses. So step number 2 is to become very aware of your senses, not your mind chatter, your senses. The color of the leaves, the smell of the air, the rustling of the wind, that stuff, not the mind stuff, your senses. Focus on that. Now, if you can only do that for like 5 seconds and then you drop out of it, okay, wonderful. So you get chattery again. Oh, wait, I'm going to go into my senses again. So it's a practice, yeah? So now 5 seconds becomes 10 seconds, becomes 30 seconds, and then all of a sudden, you're just caught up in the experience of what is. Of course, the more you do frequency work, the faster that becomes for you because you can remove the distortion pattern of the mind chatter. And the distortion patterns cause our minds to speed up. So it's hard, actually, when you haven't done frequency. It's harder. It's not hard. It's harder when you haven't done the frequency work. That was my experience of it. When I encountered frequency work, my mind stilled tremendously. That was my experience. So, and the more I have done this work and the more I've cleared myself, the stiller and stiller and stiller and stiller my mind gets. However, you need to start somewhere. So use your senses. Use your senses, step number 2. And then repeat. So, and then celebrate, like, okay, good. You don't have to beat yourself. Oh my God, I didn't think I started thinking again. Well, you just didn't think for like 2 seconds. It's awesome. Okay, so do it again. And you just keep going, right? So that's step number 3. So that's what I would say, 3 steps to stilling the mind.
You know, I think something else that works for a lot of people is the breath.
Absolutely.
Just become aware of the breath.
Yep.
And just give the mind something to do, because it's looking for a project, because it's a doer.
Yeah.
And so, okay, let's just focus on the breath.
Yep.
Just breath in, breath out, you know.
Yeah, and yes, totally. And I think that for some people that totally will work, and for some people you have to exert to get to a harder breath so your mind can empty. Sometimes in the physical exertion, right? Like if you're running up a hill and your heart's pounding and you can't really breathe very well and all that stuff and your whole body's going, you're not really thinking about that much other than I'm sprinting up this hill. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. You're not really thinking about, I don't know, your to-do list. Or, well, and if you are, maybe sprint harder. You know what I mean? Like, because that will get you to the state where you're not thinking so much. All you're thinking is like, oh my God, heart rate, right? You're just in the moment of the exertion. So for some people where you can use your breath either in the milder example that you just used or exert harder, and that will allow you to drop out of the mind even more.
You know, the other thing that triggered is the thought about, I've heard you mention that we use such a small percentage of our true potential or capabilities.
Yeah.
You know, 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
So with that practice and moving into the stillness and then relying on a resource that's there, you say 100% of the time, but we've blocked most of the time. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. It's just a muscle. You just practice. And the gestation period is, first of all, critical to recognize that it's there and that it's powerful. The second is to schedule it. The third is to, you know what I mean, to use it. So like, and then the fourth, which is important, is not to be attached to what comes out of the gestation period, where you're like, oh God, I've got to create this thing. If I don't create this thing, I'm really screwed, right? That sort of puts a kibosh on the gestation period, because it's like any art. Right? If it's really beautiful art, it's not like the artist, the art's calling the artist to bring the art into form, right? So the artist is following. It's really an exercise in following, right? And when it's just like a birthing of a baby, right? When the baby's going to come when the baby's ready. I mean, if you're not cutting the woman open and pulling the baby out, but you know what I mean? Like if it's a natural birth, the baby's coming, or the flower is going to open when it opens. The same way with art, right? If it's the artist is following, you'll hear a lot of them will talk about, it's like, well, it wasn't time yet, and then all of a sudden they're inspired, and oh, now they're going, right? Whether they're writing or painting or I don't know, creating in whatever way, it's the same. So similarly, this gestation period is the same for productivity. It's that our art might be a marketing piece instead of a painting. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just a different focus.
Wouldn't it be wonderful to take that whole concept and introduce it into grade school children?
Yeah.
And then junior high and high school. And so as you progress, you develop greater and greater.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah, and you can do it now too. It's just about, just the first step is in the discipline of making time for it. So thinking of it as critical as the doingness. Yeah. You can actually get a heck of a lot more done in taking the stillness, because what you receive is instant and complete. What you receive in terms of the knownness, instant and complete, and you're like, okay, there we go. And then it's all of a sudden, and then it has its own momentum because it's coming from a higher resonation. So that idea, that inspired idea, has so much more momentum, and so you can go into action. Then done. It's just done. You're like, okay, I guess it's done. And it's done when it's done, because it's a form of art, really. It's a form of creation. So it's really kind of cool.
Oh. I think it's time for stillness.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Karen, could you help me? I hear so often when I look at your video or your website, GFC. Exactly what is that?
A GFC is a group frequency calibration, which looks a lot like a guided meditation on a particular topic. And what I'm doing is I'm helping you to remove the distortion patterns of that particular topic. And because you're coming together as a mastermind in a group to connect to pure source even more and to clear the distortion patterns of this particular topic, what happens is a tremendous amount of momentum starts to happen because of the energetic of the entire group, and each individual is able to move faster and ascend higher than they could have on their own. Welcome everyone to the Group Frequency Calibration for Can You Get More Done by Being Still? So first, let's become very aware of our bodies. How are your hands placed? How is your weight being held in your body? Is there tension in your body? Just noticing. And noticing the surroundings. So any ambient noises on your end, the noises on my end, including my voice. Noticing the light. Any smells that might be around. Just becoming more aware of your surroundings and more present. Good. Now, becoming aware of your solar plexus between your belly button and the base of your sternum. As you become aware of this space, we're going to take a single breath together. Inhaling, holding your breath in for a count of 5. And whenever you're ready, releasing all the air out of your lungs and holding your breath out for a count of 6. Noticing the length of your count. Is it super short? Long? Just notice what you have chosen. When you're ready and complete with that breath, bringing your attention to your lower belly between your pubic bone and your belly button, breathing normally here. And there's no rush, so complete whatever length of breath your count leads you to. And whilst we're waiting for the mastermind to gel, please note, for those of you who are new, that I'll be working with you on the group and the subgroup level. And then I'll be making noises on my end. So you'll hear me exhale sharply occasionally. You might hear me hum. You might hear me yawn, even though I'm not tired. And that's just the way that I remove the distortion patterns at this time. I'm also working more and more in silence. And that is because I'm working at the higher frequency levels, which allows me to remove more distortion patterns more effectively and more efficiently, and for you to experience less detox. So if you don't hear anything on my end, I'm just working on you in silence. And if I say something that resonates, it's likely yours. And if I say something that you react strongly against, like it couldn't possibly be yours, it likely is yours. So I invite you to be open to that possibility and to explore it. Good. So the mastermind has just gelled. So continuing to keep your attention, focus, awareness on that lower belly, let's go ahead and ask ourselves the following question. How can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And that question again is, how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source. And as you ask that question, please imagine, sense, feel, or become aware of a brilliance deep in the very center of your body. And as you become more aware of this brilliance, it intensifies because of the attention you have placed on it. And as this brilliance intensifies, it expands outwards through your cells, through your flesh, and through the pores of your skin, into the space between your physical body and your spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length all around you. And as this brilliance intensifies, it causes the sphere to oscillate. And as you have your attention on this sphere of brilliance, which is you in your connection with pure source, I am working at the source level to increase your capacity or natural bandwidth for pure source frequencies. Irrespective of what level you are at. Good. Bringing your attention now, please, to the space between your belly button and your heart. The first distortion pattern that we're going to remove is that of a resistance to or discomfort with, or for a small subgroup of you, fear of stillness. So for a large subgroup within this group, there's an addiction to doing, okay, which is fed by this fear, discomfort, or resistance to, depending what subgroup you're in. So we're going to deal with all of these distortions at the same time, for depending on what subgroup you're in. So it's going to require that I'm quiet for a bit. So breathing normally here. Now bring your attention, please, to your xiphoid process, which is right at the base of your sternum. So your sternum is a big thick bone that runs right in the center of your chest, where your ribs meet in front of your body. Right at the base of your sternum, there's a fleshy point that if you press on it, it's tender. That's your xiphoid process. So bring your attention to your xiphoid process. So this is the distortion pattern. It's actually a thought form of doing being more important or more powerful than this period of stillness. So while doing is important, action is important in this third dimensional world, without this gestation period, the doingness has less potency, less effectiveness, and less impact. It also is harder to know what to do because you're trying to think about what it is that you're doing, as opposed to allowing yourself to be still, allowing for the gestation period to happen, and then receiving an inspired thought. So let's remove this distortion that doingness is somehow more valuable, more important than this period of stillness. Yeah, very nice. Bring your attention now to your sternum, that thick bone in the center of your chest where your ribs meet in front of your body. So along the entire length of your sternum. Yeah. So this is resistance to time or divine timing. And it has to do with wanting to push your sense of time with your will, which is a form of control. So there's a control pattern here, and in terms of time, and there is a resistance to divine timing, and a resistance to or discomfort with or fear of surrender to divine timing. So it's quite a little bundle here of distortion patterns. So just keeping your attention in your sternum. Your mind may want to wander here. I encourage you to keep bringing it back to the sternum, because these distortions affect more than just this gestation period. It's a little bit more global. So just keeping your attention as much as you can on this part of your body. And if it's helpful to put your hand on this part of your body to help you with your focus, please go ahead and do that. Yeah. Good. And now bringing your attention, please, to your lower ribs. And as you bring your attention to your lower ribs, we're going to remove this distortion pattern around receptiveness or openness. To inspired thought, or however you received inspiration. Okay? So, keeping your attention on your lower ribs. Yes. And so in this same space of the lower ribs, releasing this distortion pattern around control, okay, meaning mental control. So in the sense of you need to control the ideas, you need to generate them, you need to be the one who plans everything. That's what I mean by that, okay? So releasing this control. For some of you, this is quite a deep pattern and it will show up more than once, meaning it will show up in other layers. But releasing this on this layer so that you can have more distance from your mind and needing to be the one to generate everything as opposed to just receiving these flashes of inspiration. Okay? Good. Excellent. Bringing your attention, please, to your solar plexus, between your belly button and the base of your sternum, working to integrate your pain bodies here for just a little bit. There's a lot of shift right there. So just keeping everything nice and stable, integrated. Yeah. Good. This brings us to the end of this session. I look forward to working with you on the next GFC. These GFCs help people release distortion patterns. It's my sincere hope that you benefit profoundly from this series, which is why I spend so much of my personal resources creating these as my gift to the world. If a GFC topic resonates with you, often more work that can be provided in this one GFC is needed to really clear or loosen deeply held distortion patterns in areas that are sticky. Because these patterns are like layers of an onion, usually there are multiple layers to individual topics. Depending on how much of a challenge this topic is for you, it may make sense for you to go deeper than what this session allows. If you feel this is the case for you, please visit sphericalluminosity.com for more targeted support.